German. Hands where I can see them.
Okay, they're not. What is going on?
The houses you've been going back to after your calls and robbing while your patients...
Once is a mistake. Twice is suspicious. German A. Lobaton did this 3 times, responding to medical emergencies, then returning to rob the empty homes he left behind. He is about to answer for every single one.
That wasn't me. Somebody else has been using my run sheets. I've been saying for months.
3 homes. Electronics, jewelry, firearms, all...
When the call came in at 11:47 on a Tuesday night, German Lobaton was the EMT who showed up to save the patient's life. 48 hours later, he was back at the same house. The patient was still in the hospital, the lights were still off, and German had the layout memorized. By the time Ulster County investigators served the search warrant on his apartment, they would find televisions, laptops, jewelry, and a loaded revolver. Every item traced back to 3 different patients in 3 different homes. The person who came to help had marked the house, gone home, and come back to rob it. Quick question before we keep going. When the paramedics walk through your front door at the worst moment of your life, you do not think twice about who they are or what they see. Should you? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you have not subscribed yet, this is the channel where authority figure betrayals get the breakdown they actually deserve. New case every week. German Anibal Lobaton was born in 1985 in the Hudson Valley, the second son of immigrant parents from the Dominican Republic who had settled in the village of Ellenville in Ulster County, New York, in the early 1980s. His father worked construction on the road crews that maintained Route 209 between Kingston and Port Jervis. His mother cleaned rooms at one of the small motels off Canal Street, the kind of place that stayed open year-round on the strength of a few hunting trips, a few weddings, and the steady trickle of motorcycle riders who used Ellenville as a fuel stop on the way through the Shawangunk Ridge. German grew up bilingual. He spoke Spanish at home and English everywhere else, and by the time he reached Ellenville's Central School District, his teachers were noting in his file that he was eager to help, friendly with classmates, occasionally distracted, but generally cooperative. That phrase, eager to help, would follow him into every recommendation letter he ever received. He played junior varsity soccer in middle school, but never made the high school team. He worked summer jobs starting at 15, the kind of jobs that exist in a Catskill Mountain village in the off-season. He bagged groceries at the ShopRite on Center Street. He bussed tables at a diner that closed at 9. He pushed shopping carts at the Walmart down in the strip mall outside of town. None of it paid more than $7.25 an hour. None of it lasted longer than a season. By his junior year, he was helping his father stretch a $32,000 income across a household of 5. He graduated from Ellenville High School in 2003 with a B- grade point average and no clear plan. He took a few classes at SUNY Ulster, the community college in Stone Ridge, but he did not finish a degree. He drifted for 3 years. He drove a delivery van for a beer distributor. He worked a temp shift on a Habitat for Humanity, built outside New Paltz. He laid asphalt for a single summer with his father's old crew, and at the end of that summer, he told his mother that his back already hurt the way an old man's back hurt, and he was not going to do it for 30 years like his father had. Then, in 2007, German walked into the Ellenville First Aid and Rescue Squad and asked about volunteering. He was 22 years old. The Ellenville First Aid and Rescue Squad is a volunteer-driven organization that has served the village and the surrounding hamlets of Wawarsing, Napanoch, and Cragsmoor since the 1940s. The squad operates out of a brick station house on South Main Street, 2 bay doors facing the road, a flagpole out front, a single ambulance on duty most nights, and a backup rig for high-call evenings. The roster is a mix of paid daytime staff and volunteer night shift members. A new volunteer in 2007 was welcome, vetted lightly, and asked one main question. "Are you willing to show up?" German signed up. He passed the basic background check, which in 2007 was not the most exhaustive screening process in the country. He enrolled in the EMT basic course that ran 2 nights a week out of a classroom at the Ulster County BOCES facility. The course was 190 hours of lecture, practical skills, and clinical observation. He scored well on the written test. He scored even better on the practical exam, where instructors noted that he remained calm under simulated pressure and demonstrated strong patient assessment skills. In the spring of 2008, German A. Lobaton received his New York State EMT certification. The state-issued patch went on the shoulder of his uniform shirt, the card went into his wallet, and his name went onto the rotation board at the squad house, ready for the next page to come over the radio. For the next 4 years, he ran calls: cardiac arrests on Burmy Road, overdoses in the trailers off Brown Settlement, falls in the nursing home up on Route 209, car wrecks at the curve by the Merriman Dam. He worked with senior medics who taught him how to read a 12 lead, how to start a line in a moving rig, how to talk to a frightened parent about a febrile child. His call sheet stacked up. His evaluation stayed positive. The language was almost always the same: reliable, punctual, good rapport with patients and families, eager to help. To understand what German Lobaton was about to do, you have to understand what an EMT actually sees when he walks into a stranger's house. A 911 medical call gives a paramedic something almost no other person in the world is given freely: the front door. Patients do not screen their EMTs. They do not ask for credentials. They do not require a warrant. When the rig pulls up at 2 in the morning and someone is having a heart attack on the bathroom floor, family members open every door, every cabinet, every drawer. They show the responder where the medications are kept. They show the responder where the patient sleeps. They explain who lives there, who is gone, who is coming back tonight, and who is not. The Ellenville First Aid and Rescue Squad covers a service area of roughly 40 square miles with a permanent population of around 7,000 people. In a community that size, the same patients call again and again. A medic who has been on the rotation for 4 years will eventually respond to the same house twice, sometimes 3 times, sometimes more. He learns which neighborhoods have alarm systems and which do not. He learns which homes have dogs. He learns which patients live alone, which patients are widowed, which patients have adult children 2 hours away in New York City who will not be back until the weekend. He knows when the house is empty. The system depends on a single quiet assumption, the same assumption that every healthcare worker in the country relies on: that the people who answer the call are the people who care about the call. There is no audit. There is no exit search. There is no review of what a paramedic looked at on the second bedroom dresser, while his partner was outside running a strip on the stretcher. The squad room has no surveillance camera over the report writing desk. No one watches the rig back into the bay. Protocol does provide a few formal safeguards. A run sheet is generated for every call, signed by the responding EMT, countersigned by his partner, and filed both with the squad and with the receiving hospital. The patient's name, address, vital signs, treatments, and disposition are all recorded. But the run sheet is a clinical document. It does not log what the EMT looked at. It does not log which rooms he walked through. It does not log whether he came back the next day. The system does not assume good faith. It requires it. It has no fallback if good faith fails. For decades, in Ellenville and in every small first responder squad like it across the Hudson Valley, the system worked because the people inside it were the kind of people who saw the inside of a stranger's house, made a mental note of where the medications were, and never thought about that house again unless the radio pulled them back. German Lobaton was not that kind of person, but for almost 5 years, no one knew the difference. The first house was in the hamlet of Napanoch. The call came in late on a weeknight in the spring of 2012. A woman in her 60s had collapsed in her living room with what would later be diagnosed as a cardiac arrhythmia. Her husband, who was in his early 70s, called 911 and met the squad at the front door in his bathrobe. German Lobaton and his partner that night entered the home, assessed the patient, established an IV, ran a 12 lead, and transported her to Health Alliance Hospital in Kingston, just over 20 miles away. The husband followed in his own car. The transport was clean. The patient survived. The squad cleared the call at 1:14 in the morning and returned to the station house on South Main Street. German signed off on his run sheet. He went home. 2 nights later, the house in Napanoch was burglarized. The husband had stayed at his wife's bedside in Kingston. The dog had gone to a relative. The lights had been left off. The point of entry was a back door that the responding EMT had walked past on the way to the living room. Taken from the home were a flat-screen television, a laptop, a digital camera, a small jewelry box containing several rings and a strand of pearls, and a Smith & Wesson revolver that the husband kept in a nightstand drawer. The local police took a report. They dusted for prints. They got nothing of value. The case sat open and went cold within a week. There were no witnesses. There were no security cameras on that stretch of road. The husband, who was sitting in a chair at the hospital when he got the call from a neighbor, drove home in the middle of the night and walked through every room with a flashlight, naming the things that were no longer there. 8 weeks later, German ran a fall victim in the village of Ellenville itself, a man in his 80s who lived alone in a single-story house on Center Street. The man had broken his hip on the way to the bathroom and had lain on the floor for 6 hours before his daughter, calling from Westchester County, finally got worried and dialed the police for a welfare check. EMS responded second. German was on the rig. He assessed the patient, splinted the hip, and transported him to the hospital. Per protocol, the EMT secured the house, locked the front door, and left the key under a flower pot on the porch, exactly where the daughter had told dispatch it should go. 3 days later, the house on Center Street was burglarized. The point of entry was the front door. The key, which had been replaced under the flower pot, was missing entirely. Stolen from the home were 2 laptops, a coin collection the homeowner had inherited from his father, an antique pocket watch on a long chain, and a Mossberg shotgun that had been in the bedroom closet for 40 years. The man's daughter drove up from Westchester. She filed a report. She told the police that the only people who had been in the house in the last week were the paramedics and the locksmith her father had used in 2009. The police took her statement. They wrote it down. The case sat. A third call came in that autumn. A woman in the hamlet of Warwarsing experienced a diabetic emergency. Her adult son called the squad. German and a different partner that night responded, treated the patient with intravenous glucose, and transported her to Health Alliance. The son rode in the front of the rig. The house was left empty, with no one to lock the back porch door behind them. 48 hours later, the house in Warwarsing was burglarized. The pattern, if anyone had been watching it across 3 separate jurisdictions and 3 separate case files, was now unmistakable. 3 homes, 3 patients, 3 EMS transports, 3 burglaries within 48 to 72 hours of the call. 3 police reports filed in 3 different folders, with 3 different responding officers, none of whom were talking to each other. But someone was talking. A part-time detective in the village of Ellenville had pulled the second report personally. He recognized the address. He had grown up 2 streets over. He started pulling EMS run sheets. He started comparing names. The name German A. Lobaton appeared on all 3. The detective who noticed the pattern was named Raymond Petrillo. He had been with the Ellenville Police Department for 14 years. He was not a homicide detective. He worked property crimes, which in a village of 7,000 people meant car break-ins, stolen catalytic converters, copper wire pulled out of vacant houses, and the occasional residential burglary. He had been to the academy in Albany in the late 1990s. He still wrote his case notes by hand in a spiral notebook before typing them up at the end of the day. Petrillo pulled the EMS run sheets through a records request to the Ellenville First Aid and Rescue Squad. He did not tell the squad why he wanted them. The administrator who handed over the file thought it was for a billing dispute. Petrillo cross-referenced the dates of the 3 burglaries with the dates of the medical calls at each address. He matched the patient names. He matched the transport times. And at the bottom of every run sheet, in the same handwriting, was the same EMT signature, German A. Lobaton. Petrillo did not move immediately. He understood The way every small-town detective understands that a single coincidence is a coincidence, and 3 coincidences is a pattern, but a pattern is not a conviction. He needed more. He pulled 4 years of EMS run sheets. He cross-referenced them against 4 years of Ulster County burglary reports. He spent 2 weeks in a back office at the village hall with 2 filing boxes and a yellow legal pad. By the time he was done, he had identified the 3 confirmed hits and at least 4 other burglaries within a 2-year window, where a Lobaton run sheet preceded a break-in at the same address by less than 96 hours. The other 4 had different points of entry, different items missing, and different witness statements, and Petrillo could not yet tie them together. But he had enough to walk into a prosecutor's office and not get laughed out of the room. He went to the Ulster County District Attorney's office in Kingston. He sat down with an assistant district attorney named Catherine Marshall. He laid out the run sheets. He laid out the burglary reports. He pointed to the 3 confirmed addresses, the 3 confirmed dates, the 3 confirmed signatures. He pointed to the pattern of the patient still being in the hospital at the time of the break-in. He pointed to the keys returned to the flower pots and missing the next morning. Marshall reviewed the file overnight. The next morning, she walked the materials to a senior ADA on the major crimes desk, who reviewed it again and authorized the application for a search warrant on German Lobaton's apartment, a 1-bedroom unit in a converted 2-family house on North Main Street in Ellenville, less than half a mile from the rescue squad station. The warrant was signed by an Ulster County court judge on a Tuesday afternoon. It was served the following morning at 6:15, before German was awake, by a team of 7 officers, including Petrillo, 2 state troopers, and a forensic technician from the county sheriff's office. German answered the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants. He saw the warrant. He saw the officers. He did not say anything. Behind him, in the living room of his apartment, were the televisions. The search of the apartment on North Main Street took 6 hours. In the living room, officers recovered 2 flat-screen televisions, neither of which was registered to the lease or to German Lobaton by purchase record. The serial numbers were photographed. One matched the television reported stolen from the Napanock home that spring. The other matched a separate burglary report that had not yet been connected to the case. In the bedroom closet, officers recovered a Mossberg shotgun wrapped in an old beach towel and pushed behind a stack of cardboard boxes. The serial number was checked against the New York State stolen firearm database that same afternoon. It matched the shotgun reported stolen from the Center Street house in Ellenville. In the nightstand drawer next to the bed, beneath a stack of paperback novels, officers recovered the Smith & Wesson revolver reported stolen from the first home in Napanock. The revolver was loaded, 5 rounds in the cylinder. The serial number had not been altered. In a Tupperware container under the kitchen sink, officers recovered a small jewelry box. Inside the box were 3 rings, a strand of pearls, and a man's pocket watch on a long chain. The pearls were identified later that week by the husband from the Napanock home, who recognized the original clasp that his wife had once paid to have repaired. The pocket watch was identified by the daughter from Westchester County, who had grown up watching her father wind it every morning before work. A laptop on the kitchen table was powered on by the forensic technician. The user account was active. The hard drive contained personal photographs that did not belong to German Lobaton, including a series of vacation photos of an elderly couple, dated and tagged with the wife's first name. That name matched the patient from the first call. In a duffel bag in the closet, officers found additional items that would later be matched to 2 of the 4 secondary burglaries Petrillo had flagged, but not confirmed. A coin collection in a plastic case, a second digital camera, a wedding band engraved with 2 sets of initials, a stack of prepaid Visa gift cards still in their original packaging, never activated, with a combined face value just under $1,500. The forensic technician took photographs of every room, every item, and every serial number. The chain of evidence was logged on a hand-numbered list that ran to 11 pages. The technician sealed each item in its own evidence bag, marked the bag with the case number and the location of recovery, and signed across the tape. German Lobaton sat at the kitchen table for most of the search. He did not say anything to the officers. He did not call a lawyer immediately. He watched them work. When Detective Petrillo finally walked into the kitchen with the inventory sheet, German looked up and asked, in a quiet voice, whether his EMT certification was going to be revoked. That was the first thing he said. "We are heading into the interview room and then into the courtroom. If you have stuck with me this far, you already know that what made this case different is not the dollar value of the property. It is the position the person stole from. If you want more cases where the badge or the uniform was the actual weapon, hit subscribe. We do not let these stories disappear into a local news clip." German Lobaton was arrested at his kitchen table at 12:47 that afternoon. The interview was conducted at the Ellenville Police Department on Center Street, in a small room with a single table, 2 chairs, and a wall-mounted camera that recorded both audio and video. He had been read his Miranda rights at the apartment. He had signed the waiver. He had agreed to talk. Detective Petrillo conducted the interview. A state trooper sat in the corner. Petrillo started with the first house in Napanosh. "You ran a call there on the 2nd of April. Your signature is on the run sheet. 2 nights later, that house was broken into. We just recovered the revolver from your nightstand. I don't know how it got there. You don't know how a loaded firearm registered to a man you transported to the hospital ended up in your nightstand. No. What about the television in your living room? I bought that. From who? A guy. What guy? I don't remember his name. What about the pocket watch in the jewelry box under your sink? I don't know. What about the laptop with another patient's vacation photos on it? I want to talk to a lawyer." The interview ended there. German Lobaton was processed, arraigned the following morning in Ellenville Town Court on an initial complaint of burglary in the 2nd degree, and remanded without bail pending grand jury action. His EMT certification was suspended within 48 hours by the New York State Department of Health, Bureau of Emergency Medical Services. He never worked another shift on a rig. The Ulster County Grand Jury returned a multi-count indictment in the late autumn of 2012. The charges included 3 counts of burglary in the 2nd degree, each a Class C violent felony under New York Penal Law, Section 140. 25, along with grand larceny in the 4th degree and criminal possession of stolen property in the 3rd degree. The firearm recovered from the nightstand added a separate count of criminal possession of a weapon in the 2nd degree. German Lobaton was represented at trial by a private defense attorney named Wendell Harris, retained with money raised by his family from the small Dominican community in Ellenville, and a second mortgage taken out by his parents on the modest house they had spent 20 years paying down. Harris argued at pre-trial that the search warrant had been issued on insufficient probable cause. He filed a motion to suppress the items recovered from the apartment. The motion was denied. He filed a motion to sever the 3 burglary counts and try them separately, arguing that the jury would be unfairly prejudiced by hearing them together. That motion was denied as well. The trial proceeded on the consolidated indictment. The trial began in the spring of 2013 in Ulster County Court in Kingston, before Judge Donald Williams. It lasted 9 days. The prosecution called 17 witnesses, including Detective Petrillo, the forensic technician, 2 of the 3 patients, the daughter from Westchester, the husband from Napanoch, and a senior medic from the Ellenville First Aid and Rescue Squad who testified about EMS protocol and the chain of custody for run sheets. The medic, who had trained German personally in 2008, sat on the stand for nearly an hour. He did not look across the courtroom at the defense table once. The defense called 3 witnesses, including German's older brother, who testified about a complicated personal life, mounting credit card debt, and financial pressure in the months before the arrests. The brother did not deny the property recovery. He asked the jury to consider that his brother had panicked, made a series of escalating mistakes, and was not the calculated thief the prosecution had described. The jury deliberated for less than 5 hours. They returned guilty verdicts on all 3 burglary counts, the grand larceny count, and the weapon possession count. At sentencing, the daughter from Westchester County addressed the court. She spoke for less than 3 minutes. She said that her father had spent the last weeks of his life afraid in his own house. She said that the pocket watch had belonged to her grandfather, and that her father had carried it every day of his adult life, and that it could never be replaced no matter what was recovered from a Tupperware container under someone's kitchen sink. She did not raise her voice. She finished, and she sat down. The husband from Napanoch did not speak. He sat in the second row of the gallery and looked at the back of German Lobaton's head for the entire sentencing hearing. Judge Williams sentenced German A. Lobaton to 13 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. In delivering the sentence, Judge Williams said the following: "There is a particular kind of breach that this court has rarely seen. It is the breach committed by the person sent to help. You were called to these homes at the worst hour of these families' lives. You memorized the floor plan, you went home, and you came back to take what was left. That is a betrayal of an order this court is required to recognize, and this sentence does that." German Lobaton appealed his conviction. The Appellate Division, 3rd Department, affirmed the conviction in a unanimous decision, rejecting the suppression argument, the severance argument, and a third claim that the sentence was harsh and excessive. He was incarcerated at a New York State correctional facility in the Mid-Hudson region, where he served his sentence under maximum security. Most of the stolen property was returned. The revolver went back to the husband from Napanoch. The pocket watch went back to the daughter from Westchester. The Mossberg shotgun was returned to the man on Center Street, who lived to see it, and who told a reporter from a local paper that he had not slept through a full night since the break-in and did not expect to start. The Ellenville First Aid and Rescue Squad still answers calls out of the brick station on South Main Street. The bay doors still face the road. The flagpole still stands. New volunteers still walk in and ask about training. The squad still depends, as every squad does, on the assumption that the person who walks through the front door is the person they say they are. That case was disturbing. But the case waiting on your screen right now is the one I still cannot stop thinking about.